Okay, up next for this lesson, we're going to be talking about the law of sines. So for triangle ABC, the law of sines states that the sine of angle A over side A equals the sine of angle B over side B equals the sine of angle C over side C. So remember that all of the capital letters are talking about the angles, and all of the lowercase letters are talking about the side lengths that are across from that angle of the same letter. So we only need two of these three things. So we might have A and C, B and C, or A and B. So we only need two of those in order to set up a proportion using the law of sines. So you can use the law of sines to find a missing side or angle if you know a pair of an angle and its opposite side. So we have to know, for example, maybe angle A and side A. It's got to be a matching pair of an angle and its opposite side. So let's practice this with example number 3, where we need to solve the triangle. And remember that solving the triangle means we find all missing sides and angles. And for this example, we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So one thing I always like to do with these problems to start is just write what things are missing. What do I need to solve for? So I can see that I am given angle D and angle F, but I am missing the measure of angle E. I'm given one of my sides, which is across from angle F, so that means this is side F, but I am missing side D and side E. So I just kind of like to write these off to the side, make a box to make sure that I am finding everything that I need to solve this triangle. So starting off with that measure of angle E, I'm given those other two angles, so remember I can just subtract from 180. So the measure of angle E equals 180 degrees minus 33 minus 28. So the measure of angle E equals 119 degrees. Okay. Up next, let's see if we can find our missing side D. And remember, we have to have a matching angle and side pair given to us in order to use the law of sines. So if you look at this picture, the only matching pair that we are given would be angle F and side F. So I'm going to start off with that and say that the sine of angle F, which is 28 degrees, over the side F, 15, that's going to be on one side of my proportion. And then on the other side, since I'm trying to find D, I would say the sine of angle D, so sine of 33 degrees over D. Okay, once you have your proportion set up, there should only be one thing that you are missing. I know all other three values here. The only way to solve is if we only have one thing missing in our proportion. So from here we can cross multiply and we get D times the sine of 28 equals 15 times the sine of 33. Then to get D by itself, we can divide both sides by the sine of 28. So that gives us D equals 15 times the sine of 33 divided by the sine of 28, and that is 17.4. Okay. Lastly, we need to find side E. That is our last thing missing. So I'm going to set up another proportion using the law of sines. I'm going to start with my known pair, which was f, so sine of 28 over 15. So that's my sine of angle f over the side f equals, now if I'm trying to find E, I would say the sine of angle E, which we found to be 119 over the side E. So now that we have our proportion set up, we can go ahead and cross multiply. We have E times the sine of 28 equals 15 times the sine of 119. Divide both sides by the sine of 28. And we get E equals 27.9. All right, so now we have solved our triangle. We have all missing values solved for. At this time, I would recommend giving the next problem a try on your own, and then you can resume it when you're ready to check your answer. So for this example, we need to solve the given triangle. The things that I am missing are angle X, angle Y, and side X. So those are the three things that I need to find. In this case, we aren't given two angles, so we can't subtract from 180 like we did in the last example. But if you notice, we are given both our angle Z and our side Z. So we can use those to set up our law of sines proportion. So let's start with that. The sine of angle Z, the sine of 39 over side Z, which is 10, equals, now if you take a look, remember we need to have three things that we know in our proportion, right? I can't put two unknowns over here because I won't be able to solve that. So if you look in our picture here, we don't know angle X or X, so that would not be a good one to start with because we're not going to be able to solve our proportion. But we do know side Y, and we don't know angle Y, so that would work because we know one of those two things. So let's say that the sine of angle Y over Y, which is 14. Now that we have set up a proportion, we can cross multiply. 10 times the sine of Y equals 14 times the sine of 39. Remember, we're trying to solve for angle Y, so we can divide both sides by 10. Now we have the sine of Y equals 14 times the sine of 39 over 10. So I'm going to go ahead and type that into my calculator. And that gives me about 0.88. And I'm just going to put dot, dot, dot for now because I don't want to round quite yet. So if I want to find angle Y, I have to take the inverse. So sine inverse of that fraction that I just typed in, 0.88 and so on. If you want to type in this entire thing here, if that's easier for you, you can do that. Just make sure you put in your parentheses where they need to. Another way that you can type this in, if you did type it in and get your decimal like I did, you can hit second sine to get your sine inverse, and then hit the second key again, and then the negative symbol, which should bring up ANS for answer. That's just pulling your previous answer you got on your calculator. So we get angle Y equals We're rounding to the nearest tenth, so 61.8 degrees. Alrighty, so now we just need to find angle X and X. The next thing that I would do here is subtract from 180, because now we have two of our angles. So we can say that the measure of angle X equals 180 minus 39 minus 61.8. And that gives us 79.2 degrees. Okay, so the last thing we need to solve for is side X, and we can do that by setting up another proportion with the law of sines. So I'm going to start off with sine of Z over Z, which is sine of 39 over 10, since those were two of my givens from the beginning. And then I'm going to say on the right-hand side, sine of X over X. So sine of 79.2 over side X. Now we can cross multiply. We get X times the sine of 39 equals 10 times the sine of 79.2. Now to solve for X, we can divide both sides by the sine of 39. Go ahead and type all that into your calculator. 10 times the sine of 79.2 divided by the sine of 39. If you round to the nearest tenth, you should get 15.6. So now I've solved for all my missing sides and angles, so I am done with this problem.